Okay. If you do not want your image shown or your voice recorded, I suggest you not attend this meeting. Co-hosts Ed and Marcus act as bouncers for the meeting. If you are say something very inoffensive, vulgarity, show something very vulgar, put something vulgar in the chat, you will be removed from the meeting and not be let back in. Okay. So let's see, Ed, why don't you unmute? So what we're going to talk about today, everyone, is if you guys got the flyer or on my social media, I put my contact information in the chat area. So what we're going to talk about, there's a high level idea that was presented by my constituent Ben, is the idea to close the southern part of 4th Street between M and New York. And then we're going to talk about, then DDOT will be talking about traffic calming measures between 4th and M Street, that basically that corner there too. And then we're talking about 4th and New York. And then we're going to talk about 5th and L. And then if we have time for other stuff, we will talk about that. But we're going to pretty much stick to this. You can put comments in the chat, and Ed and Marcus, if you will help me with that. So if something you see important, I should be aware, please read it out to me. All right, so now I see Scott and where did Ben go? There's okay. So why don't you unmute Scott and Ben, Ed and Marcus, please. Oh, hey, Brian. Okay, so let me tee this up for, is that you, Ben, showing that?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, so Ben is a constituent from M Street. And so as we know, there are concerns about this intersection of M and 4th, and there are safety concerns. It is considered basically the on-ramp for 395. There are speeding issues. People go down the wrong way down 4th Street. We are very familiar with that. Some of my 4th Street friends are on. People don't stop at the stop sign. People use the alley, talking about my alley. People were talking about going down the alley to get access, okay? So this is an idea, only idea. Take a deep breath, everyone. Nothing has happened yet. That actually has been presented to DDOT, and tonight's meeting, we are getting feedback from the constituents, okay? Because this would solve a lot of traffic concerns. So I asked Ben and Scott to present there, and then Scott, who is in Yale Steam Laundry, has kind of a tag idea to go with Ben's idea. Okay, so go ahead, Ben. I think, Ed, you're gonna have to unmute Ben again.
Awesome. Thanks, Rochelle. So great to meet everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. Very quick background on residence. I lived on the 400 block of N Street for 11 years, and I've lived on the 400 block of M Street now for 3 years. So been in the neighborhood for a while and very familiar with sort of the host of traffic and safety issues that I think would pertain to what we're talking about today. We put together some slides, Scott and I, just to kind of give everyone a quick overview of what we're talking about. So it's a multi kind of piece issue that affects a lot of different areas of our neighborhood, the 400 and 500 block of M Street, Browns Court Alley, the 1200 and 1100 blocks of 4th Street, the 400 block of New York Ave, obviously for the Yale Steam Lofts, and the 400 are in the 4th Street and New York Ave entrance to 395, which is really the crux of the issue. I've always viewed our neighborhood as one that's heavily residential, especially north of New York. There's lots of young children. I have 2 young children myself. There's lots of elderly residents, people with disabilities, lots of pets on leashes. M Street itself feels like it should be a residential street. Currently, it is classified as a collector road instead of a local road in DDOT's traffic plan, which prohibits us from having access to some measures of safety. It's a one-way street, as you all know. There's barely enough room for 2 vehicles, yet, as Rochelle noted, it's really used as an on-ramp to 395 for access to 4th Street. If you look at all other access to 395 in our neighborhood, you've got New York Ave, New Jersey Ave via New York, Massachusetts Ave, and then M Street. So one of those clearly sticks out when you look at kind of the totality of it. There's a bunch of different concerns. They really all stem to the fact that 395 is that this area is being used as a shortcut to 395 versus taking one of the main roads. So at the intersection of 5th and M, there's a lot of issues with vehicles failing to stop at the two-way stop. There's a lot of aggressive behavior towards pedestrians. Personally, I would say on a weekly basis, I'm kind of revved up to by a car, yelled at, cursed at. I've had things thrown at me with my children in strollers. My dog's gotten clipped a couple times on her leash. So just a lot of aggressive behavior for people trying to speed on to 395 as quickly as possible. On the 400 and 500 blocks of M Street, there's massive morning and evening traffic backups. This evening was a great example. Traffic was backed up all the way up 4th from 395, all the way down the 400 block of M, the 500 block of M, and up halfway up 6th Street towards N Street. Again, lots of aggressive behavior at all hours of the day, yelling, horns, tons of altercations, and there's frequent overweight vehicle use. So we get a constant stream of overweight vehicles, including a lot of cement trucks using M Street as access to 395, despite the fact that it has a very clearly called out vehicle weight limit. And then Brown's Court, which is a huge issue as well. So also being used as a side shortcut off of M Street to get to 395 even faster. Extremely aggressive behavior. So lots of speeding, swerving, sharp turns around the corner, coming down the alley from M Street. Multiple vehicle crashes into the fence in the side of the building at 436 M Street, which is the building that I live in. We've had to repair our fence 3 times in the past 2 years. And a lot of aggressive behavior again. We actually had some major work done in front of our building recently and had to use our side entrance in the alley. And so our residents were exposed to sort of the safety issues on a daily basis. And it was pretty wild how aggressive people would be if you just asked them to slow down a little bit as they were flying down the alley. More safety concerns on 4th Street. Rochelle noted lots of one-way traffic going the wrong way down 4th Street as a shortcut to 395. We just noted DDOT did install a traffic camera there, I think to gather data. They can certainly comment on that, but it's not actually doing active enforcement at the moment. And on the 1100 block of 4th Street, which is south of M, again, lots of aggressive behavior, lots of failure to stop at the one-way stop, controlling coming off of the 400 block of M, and some more vehicle contact, which is a danger. Auxiliary concerns to our main safety concerns are health issues. You know, we live in a city, and so emissions are just naturally a part of our lives. But M Street being what I would consider more of a residential street, we do have a ton of constant kind of idling traffic, including a lot of emissions from commercial vehicles that probably shouldn't be on the street, and just general enjoyment of our neighborhood. You know, the noise pollution has gotten insane, from loud mufflers to horns, loud music, altercations, and it's all hours of the day with people accessing 395, getting out of the city, weekdays and weekends. So we've come up with a couple different possible solutions. Scott and I have collaborated on these. We've kind of ranked them in order of our own personal preference and the preferences we've gathered from other residents and constituents. I will preface it by saying any change to traffic is naturally going to create some level of inconvenience for vehicle drivers. It's impossible not to be. And so I've always thought of it in that we live in a community and a society that hopefully values people's safety above a couple minutes of an extra commute in a car. And so I have an open mind to all solutions. I have a car. I also walk and bike frequently in the neighborhood. And so I'm hoping everyone else can come to this with an open mind as well. Scott, do you want to do a quick introduction and present the first idea?
So Marcus and Ed will unmute Scott in a second. There we go.
There we go. Great. Thanks so much, Ben, for that introduction. And my name's Scott. I'm on the Yale Steam Laundry Board of Directors, which is the building that's kind of on this map pictured right on the corner of this intersection. I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf of the board. But, you know, I can, our building, as you can see, abuts Brown's Court Alley. And, you know, I also can attest to, seeing, really aggressive driving in Brown's Court, near collisions there. Some accidents, I believe, have happened in Brown's Court as well, from people speeding through there to try and get to 4th Street so that they can enter the tunnel that way. The one thing I would note, in terms of from a convenience perspective, is that we have a garage entrance, as you can see, to our building that's on the north side of New York Avenue. And so if you're coming west from, from the city to access the neighborhood, and you're trying to enter the garage, 4th Street for us is a pretty vital roadway for us to be able to make the right turn in order to go west on New York Avenue. So, from our perspective, from our buildings, and I would imagine from the residents of our buildings perspective, we would never want to see 4th Street completely closed off. But we, I certainly, from my own experience, looking at the alley and walking around the neighborhood in this intersection, it is problematic and dangerous in many ways. And so this option that continues to allow at least that right turn from 4th Street while closing off tunnel access would involve using barriers, either bollards, plastic stakes, to block traffic from taking 4th Street down into the tunnel. The bollards could also have the effect of requiring drivers that are going west on New York Avenue to enter the left turn lanes earlier on than they are now. I think that's another safety issue we see is folks trying to cut over into the left turn lanes or make a left turn from the straight lanes. And so you could have these plastic barriers or bollards that extend along a certain distance of the left turn lane and then continue to the median. This would continue to allow right turns by folks going south on 4th Street, but discontinue the entrance to the tunnel. In order to filter cars to making a right turn, you would likely also need bollards or barriers to block off 4th Street is 3 lanes right now. You probably want to at least make it 2 lanes, if not 1 lane, to make right turns onto New York easier and safe. In terms of the downsides from a convenience perspective, we note obviously folks that live on M Street may use 4th Street themselves to enter the tunnel or to continue on 4th Street, because as you know, 4th Street continues, and that is an option when you're going south now from the rightmost lane of 4th Street, and putting barriers up would prevent that. There are alternatives, however. If you're going west, if you make the right turn, you go west on New York Avenue, you can U-turn on New York Avenue and head to the tunnel, or you can go down 5th from New York Avenue to get to Massachusetts Avenue, which allows you to access both the Chinatown neighborhood as well as tunnel access. So this is just an idea of how to keep 4th Street open, keep it flowing southbound as well, while preventing the use of 4th Street for tunnel access. I'll turn it back to Ben.
Thanks, Scott. That was great. Rochelle, do you want me to keep going to other options?
Yes, please. But let's pause for a second. If anyone has questions or does not understand what Scott said or what Ben initially said or doesn't quite get it, raise the little hand feature. There goes Brian. Okay. Or if you're on the phone, press *9. So Ed and Marcus, why don't you unmute Brian for his question? Brian, Ed. There we go.
right.
There you go, Brian.
There we go. Sorry. So I just had one question about the Browns Court, and I live on 6th Street. And so Browns Court is the only way we have access to our alleyway on 5th, which is where the parking is for our structure. So if we're limiting access to Browns Court with these, well, and honestly, it may go away if, you know, traffic on M is limited, but currently it's really difficult to get onto 5th Street from 6th. If we change traffic patterns, that might change as well. But would we be limiting the alley access that lets me sort of kind of go down M and do that little U-turn that gives me access to our alleyway on 5th Street?
No,
Okay.
no, the alley's not going to be closed at all.
Okay, so that's not, I know we were just talking about restricting access and things a little bit, but if that's not part of it.
So the alley we're talking is the very, so everyone is the very large alley behind the 400 block of New York Avenue, which is basically a cross. It's wide, and you're going to be able to still access, you know, coming from M Street, coming from 5th Street, going up from north on New York Avenue, and if like say, for example, Scott's idea, you would continue straight and then you would be able to turn right onto New York Avenue. If say, for example, the entire lower part is closed, then you're just going nowhere for that east side. You know what I'm talking about, Brian? Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. Great. So why don't we unmute the Ed and Marcus, the telephone number 918. You're gonna have to press. There you go. You have a question?
I live on the 400 blocks of M Street, and I was just wondering if because there are a few of us, at least for me, who can't get onto the Zoom meeting, who are on the phone only. If there's any way, if there's maybe a Google Doc link or something that can be sent with the slides so we can see the diagrams.
Yep, I can, if you wanna, I'll put it on my social media, and then certainly if you want to email me, you got your emails, I'll do it after.
Yeah, it's tough to follow on the discussions without seeing them now.
I don't know if we can
okay,
do
I understand.
We will be transparent in post. I'm sorry that Zoom, that some people have trouble with the Zoom. I apologize for that. That's weird. Okay. All right. Let's continue.
It let me in with the meeting ID and passcode on a phone, but it's just not letting me in the Zoom app. I don't know if there's a room limit or anything. I don't want to disrupt the entire discussion for this.
All right, we'll make sure everyone gets it. Okay, not to worry, and we can explain it. We can explain it after the meeting too. So, right, we can keep explaining it. All right, go ahead, Ben.
Okay, great. So like I mentioned before, these are kind of ranked in order of our Scott and I's priority between us and also people and residents and constituents we've talked to. I think one thing we haven't mentioned yet is that a major driver of traffic down M Street and Browns Court to access 395 via 4th Street is a result of navigation apps. Right now, navigation apps count Browns Court as a fully functional roadway. And so it, as far as I can tell, it weights it equally to other routes. And so by shutting off 395 access to the tunnel, navigation apps would then adjust to route people on major thoroughfares. And I think to maybe many people's questions or concerns, Brian's in particular, it would really reduce traffic in general on M Street and make navigation around the neighborhood a lot simpler. And that's a big part of it is kind of fixing the navigation app loophole that's utilizing Browns Court. Second potential option here is discontinuing access via camera technology. So similar idea to Scott's, but instead of physical bollards or barriers, using camera technology, designating the road as no access to 395, and then using camera technology to enforce that, acknowledging that there is currently issues enforcing camera technology infractions for out-of-state drivers. And so it's not a perfect solution, but I think it's a good stepping stone towards a good solution. But it requires, again, DDOT to market no 395 access and then to enforce that. Again, here you'd probably want to shut down one lane of the 3 lanes of traffic on southbound 4th Street, 1100 block of 4th, and have 2 lanes, one to go straight onto 4th Street northwest south of New York Ave, and then the other would be the right-hand turn per the previous suggestion. Similar impact, without 395 access from our neighborhood, you'd have to reroute to either New York Ave to the U-turn, New York Ave to 5th Street to Mass Ave, or make the right 5th Street to N Street to New Jersey Ave, which would increase traffic on N Street, which isn't ideal, but that would be one option for residents at least. Next idea is one of our least favorites, which is reversing traffic northbound on the 1100 block of 4th from Browns Court. So essentially, if you came out Browns Court, you'd be directed to turn up 4th and continue on your way. Blocks all access south of Browns Court on 4th Street. And so for the Yale Steam Loft residents, certainly makes entrance to your garage much more inconvenient, but does accomplish the general goal of restricting access to 395. And then last idea would be to discontinue entry completely to that section of 4th Street, which isn't great by any means, but again, a possible solution.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to pause again. If anyone has any questions for Ben or Scott, and then as the caller said, I will put all this stuff on my social media and email to anyone that they want, and we can certainly talk about it after this meeting too, to make sure people understand. But this, and let me just reiterate, this is only an idea that is being presented to DDOT. They have what's called a traffic safety assessment that Ben has written. DDOT has it. They have to do an official study. They have to look at it, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing is going to happen tomorrow. Everyone take a deep breath. So, all right. So let me, any other, oh, there's a hand raised. Oh, the phone number. And Brian again. There we go.
Hey, awesome. So thank you. Jacob again. I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate the thought going into this, and I totally understand the frustration. I can't see the diagrams, so it's a little tough to understand, but the Ballard issue, I'm curious how that'll impact that left turn from New York Ave onto 395 while still blocking 4th Street south access to 395. That I'm just not following that in my head. I can't see it. And then the other things I was wondering about, the camera issue, the camera enforcement mechanism sounds fascinating. I was wondering if there's any way for like those who live in the area to be able to maybe like register and still be able to access 395 without getting whatever fine one person gets. So like local access only type thing.
All right, that's a good idea for DDOT, and there DDOT's on the call. So wait, so Scott, can you unmute Scott so Scott can talk to the Ballard idea again?
Yeah, sure. I think it'll be clear when you get access to the picture. But the concept is the bollards would be to the right of the left turn lanes, right? So if you're making a left from New York going west, the bollards wouldn't affect your path because they would be, they would be aligned with the, when you're going down New York Avenue, those left turn lanes, the bollards would be to your right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to see the diagram. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, we can.
And then another idea, and I know the main issue is to get less traffic flowing through, But if we want traffic to at least flow through, I was wondering if DDOT would consider, as a sort of a different fork, extending the green when you're going southbound from 4th Street. It seems like it's a very, very short light, which I think causes some of the sort of aggression to get through it while you can. And that could have, if it was a longer green, let more traffic through, let things flow a little better. And maybe even if you let people turn left onto New York Ave to head sort of northeast from New York Ave, it could open up some possibilities and maybe just let things flow through better.
So I'm not, yeah, I mean, Rochelle, I should let you comment versus me. I guess I question whether opening 4th Street up for increased access to New York and left turns would mitigate or aggravate actually the situation.
Well, that would be a whole nother dynamic. That's for sure. But we can talk. That's why we're having this meeting, to talk about. And as I said, DDOT is on the line. And let me also say, because I forgot to mention, there is one external stakeholder that's very important in our neighborhood, and that is the Shaw Firehouse. And so I gave them the information about this meeting. I don't know if they're listening or not, but they will be sent the recording of this, and they will have a very important opinion of anything that happens in terms of a major traffic adjustment with our neighborhood. So just putting that out there to everyone.
Hey, Rochelle, I just uploaded the slides real quick. Can I just read out the URL? I made a short
Yes,
URL for it.
yes, please. Oh, you're so good, Ben. Thank you.
You want to put in
No
the
problem.
chat? Or
Put in
that's
the
right.
chat. Put in
Yeah,
the- oh, they
that's right.
can't see it. They can't see
No,
it.
if they
can't
can
see
read the
it.
chat, they can see the slides. Okay, so for anyone
Yeah.
on the phone, I just made a quick link. I don't know if you want to write it down or if you're in front of a computer. It's very easy to remember. It's rebrand, REBRAND .ly /6E04. So rebrand.ly /6E04.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, caller. And next we're gonna have, why don't you unmute Brian, Ed, and Marcus? And then James after.
Yep. Hi, this is Brian. So my initial question, which I guess you can answer last, I'll just put in 2 comments since it came up in the interim, is that I think it was Jacob with the local access idea. That would be amazing. I don't know what that's like, infrastructurally to get local access. That would be incredible. And I think a lot of that comes down to GPS routing. And I've read an article about it, and I don't know if anybody on the line has information, but it's certain, well, GPS apps are more or less forbidden to route through certain neighborhoods. And I think that came back to part of Ben's earlier conversation, but maybe if that's just the quickest, easiest way to prevent people who don't know the neighborhood, something to do in the interim. And that kind of goes back to my last question, which was for Rochelle and her her warning there is, do we have a timeline on what it would take for something like this to happen? And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Well, that would be a DDOT thing. So
I can comment on the navigation app because we've had a pretty long conversation with DDOT about that if you'd like me to.
go ahead, Ed.
So sorry, I can't remember the caller's name. We did have that conversation with DDOT to see if they had a liaison at Google Waze and Apple to at least maybe mark Brown's Court as non-navigable alley. And they essentially, there's been a lot of issues with municipalities around the country related to residential roads being used as shortcuts and navigation apps. And at this moment, the navigation app companies are not taking input from municipalities unless the municipality itself closes that street to traffic. There's also a couple of issues, and the details are lost to me at this moment, but the jurisdiction around how our roads are coded, I think prohibits them from being used for like just local traffic. I'm pretty sure they have to be open to all vehicular traffic. Although I like the European model where there's literally bollards blocking your neighborhood and only you can get in if you have like a scan card. I would love to live in a city like that.
Okay, thank you, Ben. All right, Ed and Mark, why don't you unmute James? Hi, James.
There we go. There's certainly a huge precedent for, that camera technology all over Europe. These small towns limit it to people who are registered with their license plate. So you can go in, you can go out. I'm not sure if I've seen it in this country a lot, but it's certainly very common in Europe. So if you had guests, you could register them, they can have their license plate scanned and in they come. They get a green light. I'm not sure if we're going to head in that direction. One other idea that I was going to just posit as an option is they do this up in Chevy Chase off Connecticut Avenue. You're not allowed to turn into residential areas during rush hour hours. And there's clearly posted signs there. Now, we all know that clearly posted signs don't mean anything, but maybe this is about degrees and what we are capable of getting. So just kind of throwing that out there, from a turn in onto M Street from either 5th or 6th, that it's not allowed during certain hours. And also just a little bit of history. I've lived here since the 90s. I think that traffic light has always been on the short side, and there's been a number of studies, and I guess DDOT always pushes back and just limits the length of that light. I will say that the traffic in my time here is far heavier going through the neighborhood. This backup situation is maybe 10 or 15 years old, so a long time, yes, but it's been growing as the city's been growing. Thanks for letting me comment.
You're welcome. And let me just bring this up as we're talking about a growing population. So as we now know, during the 2 years with the coronavirus, things have been kind of low, not completely empty, but the convention center is now back online. So we can expect, once they get going again, we can expect 40,000 people to be dropped into our neighborhood. So if anyone who's been around with that knows what that's like, along when most of the churches are not active at the moment in terms of being at their buildings, they're online, but I call it the perfect storm when it's a Sunday and there's something at the convention center, the churches, there's something at the arena, and there's something at the Marriott Marquis. And it is literally a traffic jam. I call it the perfect storm. So let me just read something from the comments, and this is interesting. I'm not sure if this is my Twitter friend, Eric P, but any thoughts on making the middle lane on 4th between M and New York into a raised concrete island, make the right lane, right turn only with the camera, and make the left lane one-way northbound on 4th. Okay, so there's that idea. So, and all the chat's going to be saved too. Okay. All right, we have one more question here from our caller friend. Ed and Marcus want to mute you. There you go. Go ahead. Did you have a question? Caller 918. Did you have another question? No? Okay. All right. So Scott and Ben, we are done with your presentation, correct?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is I'll repeat, this is a high level idea. The traffic assessment study has already been presented to DDOT. They have to officially look at this and examine the area. I mentioned the firehouse as part of this discussion too. So it is an idea, and this is why I had this meeting, to present it to the constituency. But now we have some wonderful members of DDOT on. I hope they're here. I see Donovan, if you can unmute Donovan, Ed and Marcus, and William Hansfield should be on. Raise your, oh, there's Will. And Howard Ways, is Howard, where's Howard? Howard, if you're on the call, press *9 if you're on the phone, or use the raise your hand feature. So Will is unmuted.
Hello.
Hi, Will. So Will, let me tee up. So Will's fantastic.
Thank you.
Will is a specialist in planning and sustainability. So he is our buddy at DDOT. So what Will is presenting to us, and I think, check that iPhone, maybe that's Mr. Ways, Ed or Marcus. This is, so the idea we had before is high level, okay? What Will is going to present are some things that can happen now, soonish, to make this area safer. So go ahead, Will.
Right, thank you. And my name is Will Hansfield. I'm a bicycle planning specialist at DDOT. And how I got involved with this project, we were going to be doing a large road diet on New Jersey Avenue. If you've been to some of the ANC 6E meetings or 5E meetings, you've perhaps heard about that. And this project would intersect with it. So it's on M Street and includes the intersection of 4th and M and relates to this. So it really started with a traffic safety investigation, which I think was mentioned before. My colleague Germa Salama was assigned to come up with a solution, right? So the things mentioned were wrong way driving, speeding, and aggressive driving, all the things we talked about before. So what we came up with was doing a diverter, which forces cars on M Street to turn in the ways that are shown here, so that there's not the wrong way driving without like literally driving over some equipment, which there would be no accidental wrong way driving. And then we would also add, sorry, I'm going to go to this one. We would add something called a contraflow bike lane, which I'm showing here. So they're now pretty common around the city, but a normal bike lane just is on the right-hand side of a travel lane. A contraflow bike lane is in the opposite direction behind a double yellow line on the left-hand side. So it's basically a two-way street for bikes and a one-way street for cars. And we do this in places where we have extra space and have some interest in having bicycle connectivity, which this area is we're trying to build up more throughout the city and in this area in particular. So we would be able to add a westbound bicycle lane between New Jersey and 5th, and then in the eastbound direction, it's shared with the vehicular travel lane. But the extra and very cool effect that these have is the naturally slow driving speeds, because there's a very powerful psychological incentive not to cross a double yellow line. And there's a very powerful incentive that's created when we put white lines at the parking box edge and sort of frame that travel lane as narrow as it can go. And in this case, we were doing 10.5-foot travel lanes, which is about as narrow as we go when we have a travel lane. This is what the intersection would look like, and the sort of the pickup of this facility at New Jersey Avenue. So, I should say they alternate which direction has the contraflow lane. So, well, right now these are both short one-way segments. It's going to continue to be two-way for bikes. So you start in a shared lane going westbound, get into this contraflow bike lane, vice versa. If you're coming from 5th Street, you would start in a shared lane and end up in this contraflow bike lane going the other direction. I'm sorry, I read these plans all day long, so I get that it's a bit jarring. There's signs all over the place, and I'm just looking right at the material I'm interested in. But suffice to say, that's the sort of bicycle element for this corridor, and that would connect to the new lanes that are on New Jersey Avenue. The other thing is we would go to, a second. This is the intersection at 4th and N, and we narrow this and put in these, we call these hashed or gore markings. We call those corner bump outs or pedestrian bump outs. So it effectively contains the vehicle traveling in a much narrower space, results in a shorter crossing distance for pedestrians. And so you've probably seen some of those throughout town. So those are the key features. This is just some extra signage and do not enter signs that we would put down at the New York and 4th. There's our sign plan. This New York and 4th intersection is what we're showing here. Just additional one ways and do not enter signs. So it's a multi disciplinary approach. So we're adding some bicycle components and some core like just traffic safety signage, markings, enhancing any of the other markings that we find, like crosswalks would all get the ladder style crosswalks you see here treatment. So this is a project that I think the TSI we maybe received in October or something, I think around that time, and we've sort of worked to build all these elements into it. But we now have this complete plan, and we could be ready to install it sometime in March or early April. What we'll be doing is sending out a notice of intent to the ANC Commissioner. You'll receive that. And that basically says DDOT is ready and prepared to do this and is asking for comments. So it doesn't really address some of the things that were spoken about by Ben and the others earlier about the access point to 395, but I don't think it limits what you can do with that, right? So you could still do a diverter, like a right turn diverter at 4th and New York, some of those other things. As Mr. Nigro said, those are some fairly large questions for DDOT to like look into. It involves doing more diversion analysis and things like that. But this is something we can do now. Our ambulance going by my house, and we just wanted to come by, present it, share with the community, and let you know we'll be doing the NOI pretty soon, and that's when the comment period opens. But with that, I think I can either turn it over to Donovan or Howard if either of you want to say anything about.
Let me ask you, Will, because that's already hit the little chat section, because
Yeah.
I think I talked with you about this before and was my number one question. So I'm a big fan of the diverter. Okay, I think that for the concern of the people going down the wrong way on 4th Street, this would certainly end that, hopefully. But the number one concern that people are going to be talking about is with the bike lane and all this type of stuff on the corners, the little ballers and all that, which is, in my opinion, is not going to stop anyone from turning down 4th Street, but they're nice, right? But what about the parking? Please explain if there is going to be any elimination of parking, because that is the third rail in our community is parking.
Sure, I can talk about that. We have something called our design and engineering manual, and that manual says in excruciating detail exactly how far parking should be set back from all intersections, and it's something that we update on every project that we touch. It's going to be happening throughout the city. Most of your parking signs are, in fact, where they should be, but I think we did find one. It's here. This Xing out of a parking sign means we're going to move it. We're going to move it about 10 feet back to where it should be. This one over here, I think, is another short move. This is really only like 5 feet. We'll probably not end up moving that one. It's within like, the tolerance for not needing to move it back. But the reason we do that is for sight lines, right? So when you are a pedestrian crossing the street, you want to make sure that an approaching driver has the maximum opportunity to see you. And so we don't want a box truck or something that would block their view, here at the intersection as they're approaching and making a turn. And this is part of our strategy on layering security or layering safety, right? Everyone says, well, that's not going to stop an accident. It's like, well, when we add all the things up that we try to do, those can, and I think they do. And so it's important to keep all those layers. And this you'll find in all of our safe routes to school planning, where we are very focused on children's safety. It happens with really any project, and it's part of our municipal code is to follow our design and engineering manual. We required of contractors, developers. So we make these updates when we go through. In this case, I think it's really a pretty limited number of shifts. That's probably the biggest one. The rest of them, I think, are already essentially in place. So we're talking a very small move. I could look at the other page, but I really didn't think that they were significant changes in distance from where they are now. We also use these markings on the ground to really enforce and suggest that this is not a parking space. And in the downtown area, we have more consistent enforcement through DPW than say like the outer periphery of the city. So that is what we can say about parking. The nice thing about these contraflow bike lanes in general is that they do not affect the parking. We just take the extra space on the roadway that has been leading to speeding and leading to potentially wrong way driving because there's so much space, and it reduces. So right now you have a 16-foot travel lane, right? It's in one direction. That's, and most sedans, by the way, are like 5.5 feet wide. Most trash trucks are like 8.5 feet wide. So you could conceivably have two trash trucks like just barely squeezing by in two directions. So it looks really wide today. What we'll do with this is visually narrow it so it does not appear to be the wide lanes that you have now.
Okay, so I have something from the chat, Will. So will the plan slow traffic so much better than better Fifth and Fourth on M Street, that more people will be using the alley behind our building for a shortcut to Fourth or New York Avenue, which is currently used, but
I
don't
mean,
know if we can-
it's like, if we were in court, I'd say speculative. How can I, I can't, I don't know what the reaction to that and that specific diversion would be. We could speculate. It's hard to say. We do diversion analysis on many things. I don't think it would slow the speed so much. I mean, it gets into like the normal tolerance, right? Like if you can go the speed limit on a street, does it make you want, or can only go the speed, does it make you want to like go to the alley that you can go faster? Because I can't really answer that one, sorry.
Well, they're not going to go faster because we're going to get the correct speed bumps in there eventually.
Yeah,
So they're
there's other
coming.
inventions.
We've been more than patient. Okay, Ed and Marcus, why don't you unmute? Brian has a question.
Thank you. So I wrote down a couple things. For one, Will, thank you very much. The contra bike flow lane, that sounds great. I also agree with previous comments that, support that. I think it's a good way to reduce it. As a biker myself, a cyclist, I appreciate that. And I like the idea of the barriers that prevent, going the wrong way on one-way travel. My biggest concerns would be that this really isn't preventing the traffic backup that M Street residents have to deal with, or 6th Street residents have to deal with us coming down and sort of dealing with the left turn onto M Street from, Rhode Island. So I don't know that this is going to address any of that, and just slowing people down is potentially increasing it. And just like you mentioned, maybe things will change significantly once people realize how slow it is, but we don't know what those traffic patterns are going to look like, but that's a big concern of mine. And also the parking enforcements, you brought this up briefly, but it's not enforced here.
I do wish it was better. Generally speaking, it would make a lot of what we do easier. We do rely on as the sort of, the rule of law to, and the idea that people will follow posted regulations. It's very important for DDOT. So we're constantly asking DPW to do more, do different focus areas, things like that. But you're correct. I mean, it's not going to solve your volumetric problem, right? Like there are a lot of people that go down this street to try to access the freeway. So that's why, and I think Commissioner Nigro did a good job. Like it's a bigger question, and I think it's a good one. Like I believe in what you're trying to do. I think it's the right approach. I don't think we should use implicitly or accidentally neighborhood streets for freeway entrances. I don't think that's controversial to say. And that when we find them, we should probably, listen to the neighborhood and do what they want. So this is not to address that. That's a bigger question that I think we can address down the road. And Commissioner is starting a process to do that. So this is something we can do right away that tackles, maybe that top line speeding at night, that will happen when there aren't cars and there isn't congestion. People just are flooring it, and I think it'll do a reasonably good job at that. It's also structured in such a way that the fire department can still have access across this if they need to. And from my program standpoint, we are trying to build a citywide bike network, and small connections, even in a block or two in the right location, are meaningful. And we try to take advantage of any opportunity to add those when we have the chance to modify the street. Absolutely.
And I just want to say I appreciate that. I just received an email that said you're adding 12 more miles of bike networks and things of that nature. So thank you for that. And I mean, I appreciate you looking into this, because this is an important issue to a lot of us. Just as far as parking, is there a mandate like against color coding things to make it more obvious? Or
yeah, we don't do color code. Like I'm a Angelino by birth, and I lived there for about 15 years, and that's a painted curb city. We are not a painted curb city. We do signage as the regulation, that's in law. So painted curbs, unless we change all the statutes, wouldn't mean anything, and it would be a big job to paint all the curbs. We also, by the way, we invest in very expensive granite curbs in most of this. It's the standard. So there are concrete curbs in places, but any upgrades are supposed to be these very nice and expensive granite curbs. So it would be a shame to paint them. But there's also historic bluestone curbs, and that's like the whole historic preservation apparatus, and you don't want to get that going.
Yeah, no, that was just a question, because I feel like half the people that I correct that. I mean, I live right almost in front of a fire hydrant, and half the people, if I walk out, I usually say something. And I think most people don't realize they're parking in front of a fire hydrant.
We try to mark those, and maybe we should scan this quarter to do that, because we would add these gore markings in the parking bay next to a fire hydrant. That's the new standard. So if there is one that we didn't look for, I will go back and make sure that we didn't miss one. But that's our way of doing it. By law, they are not required to have signage on a fire hydrant. You're supposed to, be able to see them and not.
Right, blue tape.
Public safety. Yeah. So, but we try to mark the street where we can, and we will often, where it's become a problem, we will put signage as well.
Okay, so I think on 6th, 5th, and throughout M, I'm not positive, but I think most of those fire hydrants do not have markings.
Okay, I will go back and make sure that we catch those. And
I will send you a reminder, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Sure.
All right, so we're gonna move on in here. So as Will had indicated, this will become a notice of intent, and I will run around like I do and take comments, and everyone will know, because that's the right thing to do. Commissioner Lopez, is this about what is this? Because we gotta move on, Commissioner. Let me get unmute Alex, Ed, and Marcus. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner Magro. So I'm sorry. I have a question. So this is the near-term NOI. These are the traffic safety improvements that DDOT believes can be implemented swiftly. And then what was presented previously was some concepts that DDOT would need to do some further study on. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One thing that has always struck me as odd about this intersection is that cars coming from the east, turning, I guess, from New Jersey Avenue southbound, turning eastbound onto M Street, then turning southbound onto 4th Street, that maneuver to get onto 395, it seems like that should be discouraged. And that drivers coming on New Jersey Avenue southbound should be funneled through New York Avenue to get to 395. Would it be possible in these near-term safety changes to perhaps cut off the left turn movement from M Street onto 4th Street southbound?
I would not advocate for that because of my people that live on the 300 block of M Street. So that'll be another high level thing, and I would have to triage everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's I see what you're saying, and then we have like the access to the local residents question, and like.
No, I'm not talking about the 300 blocks of M Street. I'm talking about vehicles traveling westbound on M Street and then turning southbound on 3rd Street.
What do you mean southbound on? Oh, you're talking about the little road?
4th Street. Excuse me. So westbound on M Street and then southbound on 4th Street. So there are two ways to get to 395 from New Jersey Avenue. The way that I feel should be is appropriate is to take New Jersey to New York.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of vehicles instead taking M Street to 4th Street to get onto 395. And that maneuver, it seems, should be discouraged or eliminated.
So Alex, we're going to go with what Will has on the plan. So that's what he, and then we can maybe add your things to the higher level discussion. But the NOI is going
relates to that.
Okay,
it relates to that higher level thing. So
we have to move on. We got to move on, everyone. So Jonathan
okay,
and
thank
Scott,
you. I'll leave you.
Are you going to stay on the call?
I'm going to leave you with Donovan unless you need me for.
Where is Mr. Ways on? Where is Mr. So could you take down your presentation?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, take down your presentation. Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank
next
you.
we're going to talk about, and I'm going to address Scott and Jonathan. Just hang tight. We have very important person on the phone. We have Howard Ways, who is the Chief Operating Officer. Oh, there you are. Chief Operating Officer for DDOT. So Mr. Ways and I met haphazardly when the tunnel closed, if y'all remember this summer. And we became buddies, right, Mr. Ways, over that whole
Absolutely.
disaster. So he is a good contact to have him with DDOT. And so, Mr. Ways, you have been on the call. Do you have anything, anything to say initially about what you've heard about the high level discussion?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, first of all, Commissioner, thank you for inviting us and inviting me specifically. Just to give you, for those who don't know how DDOT is structured, we primarily have two large administrations. There's the operations administration, which I lead, and then there's the project delivery administration, which Will is a part of. So if you think of project delivery as the part of DDOT that implements new projects. So if there's a new road to be created, a new bridge to be built, anything that is considered, quote unquote, new, if you're like replacing everything from like the ground up, that generally falls in project delivery. So that is, your bike lanes. It also includes our transit delivery division, the circulator, streetcar, all that falls under project delivery. My administration is chiefly responsible for the day-to-day maintenance of the asset once it's constructed. So I'm basically responsible for all of the public infrastructure that you can see above ground. So roads, bridges, street lights, traffic signals,
Cameras.
I was going to leave that to last. Urban tree canopy. Technically tunnels are underground, but it's road infrastructure, alleys, sidewalks, and traffic cameras. And if we had this conversation a year ago, the traffic safety assessment would have been conducted in one of my divisions. I also have the traffic control officers, the roadway operations unit, which are the ones that move the cars off of the highway when there's accidents, and also have school crossing guards. But in the past year and a half, the automated traffic enforcement program moved over from NPD to DDOT, and it's now under my purview. We have probably upwards of about 150 cameras all over the city, combination of speed cameras, red light cameras, and a couple of stop sign cameras. And places where they are installed, we find that they tend to be very effective in slowing traffic down. It doesn't eliminate congestion. In some cases, it actually helps to divert traffic, but it does slow down the traffic, which is important in the event that there is, we don't want this, but if there is an accident, you generally have a higher rate of a lower rate of fatalities and significant injuries if you're driving at a lower speed. So that's the goal, to get people to drive slower, pay attention, and not be distracted when they're driving, right? And so what we are looking to do in this part of the city is conduct a pilot. The first we've done in the city is basically use the ATE program to enforce one-way streets. And somebody on the call mentioned rush hour restricted lanes. When I was an ANC commissioner over in Hillcrest, we fought for those rush hour restricted signs to be placed off of Alabama Avenue. So during morning rush hour, you couldn't turn into the neighborhood and use shortcuts to get throughout the city. One of the other things I want to comment on, someone said, well, can we just have the cameras not enforce us as residents? And DDOT nor NPD is allowed to do selective enforcement, right? So I thought I had this issue come up when I was an ANC commissioner. People were like, well, I'm a resident. Why can't I just, ignore the sign and drive through the neighborhoods? Like, well, you're violating the traffic laws of the city. And you really don't want, the police or your automated program to make exceptions, because then it waters down the effectiveness, quite frankly, of the enforcement. And then you're asking police officers to make judgment calls all the time, which is not something you really want them to do when it comes to enforcing rush hour restrictions. So The camera we're going to, that's in place now, will be activated on Monday for the purposes of collecting data for the next 30 days. Now, our
So tell
process
them,
is,
Mr. Weiss, tell me, so with this, are we talking about the same camera that I've been waiting to be activated
yes,
at 4th and M?
yes, it'll be turned on. Happy Valentine's Day.
I'm
It'll
so
be turned on
happy.
Valentine's Day.
You guys have no idea how happy I am.
It'll be turned on Valentine's Day, just for the purposes of collecting data. We're not going to be issuing tickets. We're just going to collect data to see how frequently people are driving the wrong way down the street. And then after a month's worth of data collection, we'll assess, the viability of actually activating the camera. If we do that, there'll be a 30-day warning period before citations will actually be issued. So let's assume that there is a significant problem that we identify through the data collection. The earliest that tickets will be issued off of that camera will be 60 days from February 14th. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. But the idea of combining that with rush hour restricted signage, I think, is one that's worth exploring. And I hope my counterparts over in project delivery, all the traffic engineering now is housed over in the project delivery side. So you submitted a TSA. I think it was back in October. For
the wrong way, for the 4th Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that October? Yeah.
So before that, even I can't remember now.
Yeah. So my fellow staff over in DDOT in project delivery are actually working on that now. So they'll come up with a recommendation, a series of recommendations that ultimately will get implemented through a variety of sources. Some of those recommendations get implemented by folks on my side of the shop. I do the residential parking program. I do all street signage, overhead highway signs, stop signs, yield signs, do not enter signs. Any roadway sign gets fabricated and installed through operations. So if that's one of the recommendations that comes out of the study, we'll be the ones more than likely to implement that. Other recommendations can be implemented through either contractors or through other parts of DDOT as relates to roads or sidewalks.
All right, so this is good news. So everyone on this call, shh, don't tell the people that the camera is going to be on, that we're checking on. No, so yeah, let them keep flying down 4th Street, because then we get more data, right? Exactly. So because I would be thrilled to have an active camera there. That's because you're going to see it happens all the time, and anyone who lives on 4th Street can testify that people go down the wrong way all the time. So this is I'm so excited, Mr. Weiss. I want to thank you. Now, so there's that part. Now, another concern on our agenda, and you can probably assist with this, that's why I wanted you on the call, is the median at 4th and New York. Okay, this is part of the New Jersey Avenue Safety Project. When people are turning into the tunnel or not turning into the tunnel, they end up literally hitting the light post, and it is dangerous. So I have a picture. I don't know if you're on my social media. We talk about it frequently. See if I can do this here. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, so this is the intersection, Mr. Weiss. So there's 2 little cones here now, but you can see the dented. That was from the most recent one. The pole didn't come down, but the pole gets continuously hit. And I think what happens is people are coming down New York Avenue like, oh, I don't want to go into 395, and they don't see this part here, and they go into this pole. So, or a variety of reasons. But this intersection, I like to call this intersection the Bermuda Triangle, because things happen here and stuff. This is just it. And I think that's one of your cars that was checking things out this morning. Maybe.
It might have been. So, street lights and traffic signal maintenance falls under me. We have about 75,000 street lights in the city. Last year, we serviced 15,000 of those 75,000. And that servicing could be, replacing dents like you're showing here, replacing bulbs. It could be replacing or painting the poles themselves. So
the question is, what can be done? What can be done
for that one? I would say, obviously, we need to repair what's there. but we may need to put maybe some safety bollards, a curb. We might even consider looking at perhaps a different paint color to maybe make the pole more prominent. So those are things that we'll look at. And I'm a firm believer that let's try something, see if it works. If it does work, great. If not, let's try something else. So I'll look into seeing how often we've had to service this particular location.
Well, I can check my social media and tell you because it's, and the people that live in this building and my building can tell you all about, it's not even just like they bang into the pole. There's just accidents here too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a mess. I mean, that's just, there's no other way to describe it. It's just the Bermuda Triangle of our area. Things happen and sometimes you don't find out why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll write you an email too. So from, I don't know, where did Jonathan go? So does anyone have a question for Howard Ways, who is the COO of DDOT, about what he just spoke to? There's Ben. So unmute Ben, Marcus, and Ed. Go ahead, Ben. No. Ben? No. Okay. Anyone else have? Okay.
They muted me again. I don't know why. Just curious, you mentioned the traffic the traffic camera on 4th Street will gather data to see if there's a significant issue with traffic going the wrong way down the one-way. Just curious, what is DDOT's definition of significant for one-way, wrong-way, one-way traffic?
Yeah, it really depends upon the volume of traffic. So generally speaking, if there are movements, anywhere from 10 to 15% that are illegal, we consider that excessive.
So if it's less than 10 to 15%, most likely the camera will not be implemented?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that what we say as excessive, right? And this happens a lot. We test speed all across the city. People say, "Oh, it's excessive speeding," and then when you look at the daily traffic counts, less than 6%, less than 5% of the people are speeding. And in that situation, we probably wouldn't institute a camera asset at that location. Then other places,
sure, yeah,
there's people who are speeding at 20, 25% of the volume of traffic is speeding. So we really want to be able to calculate and capture what we think that percentage is. And I can say if it's 10 to 15%, we consider that high.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. I guess I would just express that my concern is speeding the correct way on a one-way street is a lot different than going the wrong way on a one-way street from a safety perspective. So I would hope that the threshold is much lower for wrong-way traffic on a one-way, especially when it's not accidental, when it's very purposeful, it's high speed, and it's for access to 395 to cut past other lanes of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, and next we have Manny. Manny, they will unmute you.
Yes.
Good, Manny.
Hi. Hey, I don't know if the question was addressed earlier. I joined late, but I put in the chat, but was there any discussion about increasing the duration of the light as you're crossing New York onto 395? Because that seems to be a major reason why traffic is backing up and why there's probably accidents. As everyone's trying to literally get through that intersection in 8 seconds. Seems pretty crazy.
Well, that is a hot topic that has been examined many times. And Mr. Ways, can you, since I've been commissioner, the years I've been commissioner, it has been back and forth about the seconds. But go ahead, Mr. Ways, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so signalization, signal timing is something that happens in the signal division, the group that designs and installs traffic signals. So it sounds like they've looked at this issue over a period of time and basically come back and said there was no adjustment needed. I can explore that with them one more time to see exactly what the rationale was for not adjusting the signalization. But the concern is that the signal is so quick that it entices people to try to speed to get to the intersection. That's what I heard tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that is 100% true. I mean, you have 8 seconds, and if you have a line of cars backed up on M Street, I mean, people are honking their horns. Like I was just out there earlier and people are honking their horns, getting angry. That's why people are cutting through our alley. It's because it's impossible to get through that light. It's crazy. It's only 8 seconds long.
And this is New Jersey Avenue southbound, correct?
No,
No, this
it's
is
crossing,
4th in New
yeah,
York, going down on
4th in New
4th.
York. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, southbound 4th Street.
Yeah, so we don't have time to talk about New Jersey Avenue. 'Cause that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother meeting. All right,
Okay.
so let's take these other questions. So thank you, Manny. Brian?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about your comment about like speed percentage in the neighborhood. I'm curious how that's collected and analyzed. You set a benchmark of 10 to 15%. You say when it's analyzed, it's usually 6%. I'm more interested in the time of day that's collected, and is that taking into consideration the fact that things are so backed up that they can't move half the time, and then in other times people fly through?
Well,
I'm just curious about that collection process.
Right, we can take traffic counts, morning rush hour, evening rush hour, or any other time intermittently throughout the day.
And so how do you break that down to consider? Because I mean, I would just give an estimate of 7 to 9:30. You're not going to see that much speeding. Outside of that, you're going to see a lot of speeding until maybe 4 o'clock. And then from 4 to 6:30, you're probably not going to see that much speeding, and then you're going to see speeding again. How do you sort of isolate those sort of times and come up with this benchmark of 10 to 15% against the 6% that you see collectively?
Again, that's a pretty common phenomenon we have in the city. And again, from our purposes, when you look at daily traffic counts, if the illegal movements, if the speeding is more than 10, upwards of 15%, we consider that excessive. So
Okay,
it's
so
just
it's a collective.
It's just basically a fraction of what the traffic counts are that we collect.
Have you considered maybe changing that algorithm a little bit to consider traffic movements and patterns to sort of address off-peak hours in the city, especially in a downtown area where we see a lot of traffic?
Yeah, we look at that also. We look at off-peak in some cases where the speeding problem that's presented to us is a weekend problem. We address it through studies that look at the weekend travel patterns.
Okay,
absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'll follow up on that later at some other meeting, but I'd be curious to know if you guys have followed up on this area and weekend traffic patterns.
Thank you, Brian.
I will ask our traffic engineers that question.
So we're going to take 3 more questions, then we're going to go on to the last intersection. So unmute James, please. James. There you go, James. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Just speaking briefly about the timing of that light, and Ben, my neighbor, kind of put out the same sentiment in the chat. If we increase the timing of that light, it's only going to encourage more people to come through the intersection. So quite frankly, I would posit that we make it shorter to really make people go around. Just my 2 cents, having been here for a while. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Kristen and Mike. Ed and Marcus will unmute you. Go ahead.
Hey, can y'all hear me now?
Hi, yep. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Rochelle, thanks for setting this up. I was just wondering if there was going to be any study done about the elevated median on New York Ave in between 4th and 5th. And the reason I ask is during the construction period for, I think it was the New Jersey Ave safety project, some of that elevated median was removed, and it seemed to have a reduction in the amount of at least emergency vehicles that were getting stuck in traffic. And Rochelle, I think I offered, and I still have to send you I have some 40 or 50 videos and photographs of fire trucks, EMTs, and other emergency vehicles getting stuck in traffic because they're running their sirens, they're honking their horns, and no one's moving. So the elimination of the elevated median might help with some of that, at least anecdotally, and from what I've observed over the past 2 years of working from home here.
And where's this elevated median again? New York Avenue?
400 block of New York Avenue.
Yes.
Okay. No, I know what you're talking about.
And I have some data. that I can send over if that would be helpful.
Please,
All righty.
more data, the better.
Okay, thanks, Mike. All right, Maggie's the last question. They're moving on to the next intersection. Go ahead and unmute Maggie.
Hi, on the 4th Street going south across New York Avenue to 395, one of the things I've observed, and I use that intersection a lot, is that people in the far right lane frequently speed up to go around people in the
Yep.
first and second lanes,
Mhm.
which seems rather dangerous to me.
Mhm.
And I was thinking even arrows and the big round painted signs you all put on New York Avenue some time ago, many months ago, saying 395 this way, 4th Street this way, might help. Not that people follow, but it's something that occurred to me.
Yeah, pavement marking, striping would definitely help there. I've witnessed that myself. People get in that right lane and realize they can't get to 395, and instead of either slowing down or just continuing through the intersection and getting on 395 further down, they speed up to get onto the highway. So pavement markings would help to show what lane you need to be in, and more importantly, where the turning radii should be.
Yes.
We'll definitely look at that.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Good suggestion,
And
Maggie.
that's something that will come into my shop as well.
All right, so we're gonna thank you, and I've been remiss of introducing Donovan Boyd, who is our wonderful DDOT liaison, who is new to our area. So Donovan, do you want to do a brief introduction about yourself, about your story, and then we're going to move on to 5th and L Street.
Sure, please, and thank you, Commissioner. So again, my name is Donovan Boyd. I am the Ward 2 Community Engagement Specialist, but obviously starting this year, 6E is adopted into Ward 2. So want to thank you all for having me. And I am, again, the community liaison. So not an operations person. I'm not a planning person. I'm the resident person. I'm the constituent person. So if there's issues, I work with your commissioners all the time. A lot of ongoing requests that, maybe you haven't gotten an update on, or even if you notice something related to traffic safety, bike lane configurations, even, things as small as sidewalk repair, please let me know, send this stuff to me. And, my job is to work with you, be the go-between between yourself and the and engineers, maintenance, et cetera, at DDOT to make sure that, we can address the concerns. So again, thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and put my info in the chat. So if anyone wants
please do
directly, but that's about it. So I'm taking notes, I'm taking questions, and thank you.
Okay, so next I'm going to show for Mr. Ways. So this is our also very famous intersection of 5th and L Street. So everyone's familiar. This is L here. This is 5th, and I should have stood further back, but this is the light, Mr. Ways, that no one pays attention to. And what happens is when they come north on 5th Street, they oftentimes will run it, and there'll be a car going down here, going westbound on L, and there'll be an accident right here. So there has been a resolution from ANC 60 from a long time ago. And so I don't know what the solution is. So, but they just gun through and Maggie is very familiar with this. So they will run through there. So I don't know what y'all do, but many an accident has happened here.
Okay.
Like someone had said, put what do they call, like a big line, like right here or something, like a stop line or something. I don't know.
Stop here. Stop. They call them stop bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at that. I've driven through that intersection several times, and yeah, that's a traffic signal that can get lost as you travel up Fifth Street.
Well, you're gunning for it, and that's nothing. You're gunning from the Safeway. You're like, ooh, I gotta go, turn, boop, gun, and you're gunning up there to get across New York Avenue, and then
Yeah.
they just keep going.
Yeah, because that's another shortly timed intersection. You know, there's been plenty of times where I've caught that light like 3 times before I've gotten through the intersection.
Mhm.
So I understand that one.
Well, I'll send you our resolution from a long time ago, but
Okay.
I don't know what we can do. So, okay. So does anyone have any questions about that or Maggie? I'm sorry, Maggie. Maggie, you will be unmuted and you can comment.
Rochelle, you know, that's been an intersection of concern to me for some years.
Yep.
And other people in that block of Fifth Street. And I would advocate that we not forget pedestrians trying to cross L Street, New York Avenue, the very wide median there, New York Avenue, and then L Street again. Unless you very consciously ignore the walk signals, there's no way you can make it in one trip, in one stoplights sequence. There's absolutely no way. I believe it's still at about 18 seconds, the walk sign. And you know, pedestrians, if we want fewer cars, it would be awfully nice to remember that pedestrians, you know, cross streets and need to be able to do so safely. So I would advocate lengthening the light.
So I think Mr. Renato, and my constituents might be able to correct me or help me out. This has also been examined several times. And they increased that little island thing, so that would be wider. Remember that, Maggie?
Oh, yes.
So they increased that island thing. So Mr. Ways, I'll write you when I write you the email, but you can probably look back that they have looked at the timing of this light numerous times already too. So,
well, if I might say, I know we have to reconcile cars, pedestrians, bikes, and of course now scooters. It feels very much at both of these intersections as though the residents, the pedestrians are, pardon me, the losers, that it's all about the cars. And I certainly drive, I appreciate that, but it would be nice to be able to walk also.
absolutely, 100%, because that's scooting across there. If you don't catch the timing, man, you're not making it across New York Avenue.
Nope.
We are familiar if we go to the Safeway. All right, thank you, Maggie. And Brian, we're going to unmute you.
Yeah, so I'll just second Maggie's point about crossing. Is that, I mean, this is an intersection that I probably take at least 3 times a day, every day. The timing is difficult, but I also take it every day, so I ignore most of the signals. I know when I can cross, I know when I can't cross. That's the benefit, you know, the benefit of being here. But I don't know that it's safe for others, and I hate leading by that example to the small children that I see that I'm ignoring crosswalk signs, which there are a lot of small children that are also taking those things. And I hate them to see me crossing when it's a no walk sign, because that's just promoting, you know, further non-compliance to safety signals. So I do think that's dangerous. With that being said, I also haven't seen many accidents there, even though I do take it numerous times. I mean, the only time I came close to death there was a police chase going down the wrong way on Fifth Street. That was an unfortunate experience. And I did not look right, and that was my fault. I did not look both ways as I was crossing the street. But yes, there was a police chase coming down the wrong way down Fifth. I think since then the mayor has sort of said that we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing police chases like that. So I do agree with Maggie. I don't know what the answer is. I like that we're bringing it up. That is a dangerous intersection. I do think we should probably, at least at the minimum, have markings. We do need an increase so that it's not just locals that are breaking in that, and we're not setting. I mean, it would be better to set a good example for everybody that uses that intersection, other than the people that understand the timing. And exactly what she said. I mean, I'm a healthy mid-30s man, and I can barely make it across the street in the time that they say, and that's where I go to my gym at. So I do think it's important to consider, people that aren't going to have to stop when they get across to that L Street in front of Safeway. At least like a 24-second intersection or something along those lines. So I disagree. I think it's something that should be considered.
Yep, and I don't think constituent Terry is on the call. I don't see him. And he tells me about all the accidents. Something's got to happen at that intersection. All right. So any more questions for Mr. Ways? Oh, I see. Okay, unmute our friend on the phone. There you go. Go ahead. Where'd you go? Go ahead. You have a question?
Gotcha. There we go. I was wondering if we had some potential synergy here, where if we needed to increase the crossing time for pedestrians on 5th, if that would require a longer red light at New York and 5th, which might allow for longer red lights at New York and 4th, which would allow extending the green light from 4th southbound, like a few people have raised.
Say that one again. What? Say that one more time.
Yeah,
So
this
if
is something.
for allowing more time for pedestrians to cross, am I understanding this correctly, north-south across New York Ave on 5th by the Safeway? That would require potentially a slightly longer red light on New York Ave at 5th and New York. And then I'm wondering if that might help us get a slightly longer red light at New York and 4th to extend that green time southbound off 4th.
And I was about to say that what you're suggesting is, looking at it from a systems-wide perspective, not just intersection by intersection. And that's definitely something that our traffic engineers look at. Oftentimes there does seem to be a premium to have efficient signalization from the purposes of moving vehicular traffic through a community, but we have a renewed interest in pedestrian safety, given what we've seen in the pandemic, which is a reduction in car volume, but an increase in speed and accidents. So we're doubling down on our efforts to look at it from a pedestrian perspective, prioritizing pedestrian movement, bicycle movement, as well as scooters throughout the city. So we'll definitely take a look at that, how the system can work more efficiently to better protect pedestrians in this area. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Maggie, did you have one more comment? Marcus will unmute you.
Just very quickly, to help both the pedestrians and the speeding through the 5th and L intersection would be to make the southern part of L Street between 5th and 4th one way, especially one way going east. Just a thought, throw it out.
Okay. Okay, everyone, it is, we're at the 8 o'clock hour. Just a minute, but I want to thank all of my DDOT, Mr. Ways. It's good to see you again. And we'll be further discussing this, I'm sure. I thank you for your time. And Donovan, I know Will is already off the call. So everyone, we're gonna Thank you for the feedback. The director of DDOT will be given this recording to listen to, especially about the high level idea. And then we will see the NOI about the diverter and all that. So if anyone has any other questions about anything else in the community, I will remain on the line. We can have an open chat, but I want to thank you to my DDOT friends. Mr. Ways, you
Yes,
are dismissed.
Yeah, I'm actually putting my email address in
Okay,
the chat
great.
for anyone
Wow.
to have.
COO of DDOT, you guys take advantage.
Well, remember, Commissioner, when I met you, I was actually acting director
Oh, that's right.
for 24 hours.
For 24 hours. So
Yeah.
Mr. Ways was responsible for those 395 signs we got and extra barriers and everything because I was going crazy. And I think I was the only elected, well, after the mayor, the only elected official that actually went into the tunnel and saw that down there. All right, any other community questions while I'm on the phone here about anything else? Raise your hand or press *9, anything? I do Instagram lives. Brian has Brian. Marcus will unmute you. Does Marcus leave me? No. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I didn't want to take up this in the agenda meeting, but you've opened up a can of worms here. Now that I've voted for you and I know who you are,
Here I am.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. So I do have and I sent the message at the beginning. I do have strong concerns about the speed that's, and I don't think that was adequately addressed by the 6%, the 10 to 15% is excessive, and 6% on the speeding. 6th Street has so much foot traffic coming from the convention center through to the hotels over at 4th and Safeway and everything else. There's a lot of foot traffic in there, and I mean, being here in a row house, I can see the speed, and I have a camera. I mean, I could probably set up a marker so that I can gather miles per hour from my camera that reviews it. But more often than not, people are going 40 plus miles an hour here, and the crossing of L, people skip that. The crossing from L to New York, people skip that. Like half the time they're distracted, and if it's open traffic, they don't even see those red lights. The traffic needs to slow down between New York and Rhode Island by a lot. And I don't know what the answer is there, but I do think it's a particular concern of mine living here, walking my dog, and seeing the amount of foot traffic that's in the area, especially between the convention center and, moving eastbound into Safeway, M Street, everything that we talked about tonight. But I do think that should be something that's addressed at some point.
Okay, no, absolutely. And I can help you with that. We can work together on that and we can move that forward. And this is why I have the contacts within DDOT and all the other agencies, so we can work on these concerns, but thank you. And I'm going to take all the information from the chat. And let me remind everyone that's on the call, because we're talking about reactivating the area with the convention center and all the people, blah, blah, blah. So we need to be reminded at the corner of 5th and M, even though it's an empty parking lot now, that is a future development that will be happening. There's going to be, it's the old Washington Apartments development. And right now there's only 64 units, if you guys can believe that. But in the future, there'll be 364 units there. And by the time you add up couples and roommates and all that, there'll probably be 500 people on that block. So they need to be vaccinated. There's a lot of people coming. It's not going to be tomorrow. Frank, it's probably not going to be the rest of this year. It's going to be a 2-year build out, but it'll be coming. What the deterrent is now, if you guys are on my social media, you're well aware, there is a lawsuit between the developer and some neighborhood churches, and that is the holdup. I can assure you, once that lawsuit is settled, they will just keep going. So that will go very quickly in terms of development. Okay, Brian. Marcus, if you want to go, I will handle the crowd here.
Thank you. I tend to mute myself on meetings.
No, that's okay.
So can I ask that we just exchange emails or something, and whatever you post on social media, if you can at least big updates that you send out an email blast. I've given up social media for a lot of the part just for, mental reasons. I don't think it's very productive. So I would love to know what you're doing and be more actively involved than having to follow Twitter or Facebook, because I don't really use those platforms anymore.
Well, I'm on Instagram too. So I don't have, like, I don't do like
The
email
Facebook
blasts.
So the Facebook subsidiary. Yeah, I
I
don't
do Facebook.
No, I know. I'm saying I don't participate in their whole sort of.
Okay.
I think it's been a degradation of honest conversation, so I don't really agree with that. We won't go into the avenues of that, but for those of us that don't participate in Twitter or Facebook actively, could you set up something that we are able to either get an email blast or just an active update of what is going on in the community?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't really, I'm not into the whole email newsletter thing because it's old news, and that's why I do social media on a daily basis. But that said, Brian, you are, or anyone on this call is welcome to reach out to me at any time. And if you want an update, I will be very happy to talk to you at any time about literally anything. And let me remind people also, we do have our monthly meeting with the ANC. That's the first Tuesday of the month. And we do talk a lot about a lot of big community issues. But I'm just not into the whole monthly email newsletter thing. That's just a me thing, because I do the social media literally every day. So, but my number's in the chat. You call me, everyone calls me. Anyway, everyone texts, and you can text me too. All right, any other questions from anyone about anything? I guess not. Okay, everyone. Thank you for participating, and feel free to reach out. You got my number's 202-236-3329. My email is 6e04@anc.dc.gov, and social media @nigro4dc. I want to thank Marcus, and Ed has already left, for helping me on this meeting, but thanks, you guys, and have a very nice night, and stay safe, everyone, okay? Take care. Bye-bye. And I'll post this. Bye, bye, bye.